Good morning, Facebook. Good morning, YouTube. I'm just going to wait for you guys to tune in. I only have 20 minutes today, so I'm going to try and be real quick. Say hi. Let me know where you're tuning in from. If this is your first time, definitely say hi so I can give you a shout out. Let me introduce myself. My name is Aisha Chidole. I'm an immigration attorney, and I represent clients all over the United States. With their family immigration matter, your location is not a problem. We help clients in all 50 states, even though we're located in Atlanta, Georgia, and Orlando, Florida. But your location doesn't matter. And personally, I'm celebrating some good news this morning. I know I talked about this either a few weeks ago or a few lives ago, that USCIS is beginning to approve green cards based on marriage without interviews. We just got our first unicorn. I call it a unicorn because this is the first time. Like, I didn't think this was possible. Approved a client of ours for their green card without an interview. And we submitted that petition this year as well. So I'm so excited for my client from Jamaica that got this approval. So this goes to show that you should never complain when you have an attorney or if you work for our firm and we tell you to give us this information. Oh, why do I have to get this? Why do I have to get that? There's nothing like sending your stuff and being airtight, because the more credible evidence you send, the easier it is for them to make an approval decision. And that could be in your marriage-based case, your conditional green card case, your vow-based case. So which means that this is happening. They're doing this to reduce processing time. There's some cases that are just slam dunk where it's likely more than true that they're in a legitimate marriage. So when you're submitting your application for this first time, give it your all, give it your best shot. If you're one of our clients, you know how much we demand of you, but we do this because we want to make your process easier. We want to make sure that you get that approval. It's funny that some person online said, well, why don't you want to fight? Why would I want to fight when I can make it easier for my client? Like, why would I make it more difficult for my client to get their green card instead of saying, if you give me X, Y, and Z, it'll be easier for you? Who doesn't want the easy process and the quickest process? Like, why do you want to go through trauma, like applying for a green card? Anyway, I'm super happy about that, guys. Really, really happy about that. But moving on. So today I want to talk about what is a conditional green card? Why did I get a conditional green card? A lot of times when people put in, so Lexi Slay says she was also approved without an interview. Congratulations. It is literally the best feeling just to know that you don't have to go in there and deal with, USCIS officers and just be done. But I want to talk about conditional green cards and why you might get a conditional green card, because it confuses a lot of people. So basically, a conditional green card is a green card that's given to you or your child if at the time you were approved for the green card, you and your U.S. citizen or green card holder spouse have only been married for less than 2 years. So if you've been married for 1 year and like 11 months, for instance, and they approve you today, they're going to give you a 2-year green card. And so this two-year green card is conditional, meaning that in 2 years, you have to file for removal of the conditions in your green card to get a 10-year legal permanent residency green card. And the reason why they do this is because, you've obviously been married for a short time, and that they want to make sure that your marriage is legitimate. And that after they give you that 2-year green card, that you're still going to continue to live as a marital couple. So when you're submitting an application to remove the conditions in your green card, you still want to make sure that you're sending similar evidence that you sent when you did your marriage-based case. The only difference here is that you want to send this evidence from the date after you got your green card. So, if let's say you got your green card in 2020, December 2020, you don't need to send information from December of 2019 or January of 2020. All your information should be from December 2020 till October 2022, basically the recent stuff after your green card. They're much harder in reviewing conditional green card holders than initial green card holders, initial 10-year, initial applications for a green card, because for USCIS, they feel like if we're approving, if you've been approved for a conditional green card, it means that you have a social security number, you have a green card which allows you to work, you have a green card which allows you to travel. So that means the limitations that somebody who doesn't have papers would have, you shouldn't have that. So the standards are higher for you to have more stuff to show that your marriage is legitimate. Obviously, there are exceptions where you can apply for exceptions to filing with your spouse, but I'm kind of like focused on just the idea of the conditional green card versus a 10-year green card. And then one thing that we see a lot of people making a mistake about is when their green card, their 2-year green card expires, they file an I-90 and then it keeps getting rejected and they come to us and say, I don't know what's happening. But an I-90 is to renew a 10-year green card. Okay, you cannot use that for a conditional green card. A conditional green card requires you to not only fill an I-751, but it also requires you to produce evidence as you would if you were doing a marriage-based case. So that's really what I wanted to talk about as far as why you got a conditional green card, what you need to do to remove the conditions. Obviously, there are categories to remove the conditions. First one being you and your spouse remove it jointly. Otherwise, you can either show that your spouse has passed away, or you and your spouse are divorced, or your spouse is extremely cruel, or that you can file with your spouse, and if they don't grant this to you, you're going to experience extreme hardship. If you can show one of those ways, then you'll be able to remove the conditions of your green card. Okay? All right, let me take some questions real quick. I am so happy today for my client, y'all. You don't even know. Hi, Kalilonu. Thank you for joining in your first time. Callie Kai, good morning from Jamaica. Montego Bay, Miss Williams, good morning. Hi, good morning. I'm in another state working. Will that affect my 2-year green card? I need a little bit more context on what you're referring to. What do you mean you're in another state? When you're a 2-year green card holder or 10-year green card holder, you can work wherever you want to work. You just need to update USCIS with your address, unless you're saying that you and your spouse are no longer living together. And if your spouse and you are no longer living together, then you need to, or not living in the same state, then you need to prove and show why you're not living in the same state. Like, speaking of my client who got approved today without an interview, I might add, her and her spouse were not living in the same state, but they had a legitimate reason why. So, again, guys, it's really important to be candid and honest when you're dealing with immigration, because if you've ever heard that phrase, a tangled web you weave with lies you tell, or something like that. I forgot how this quote goes. But when you start lying and it just becomes a tangled web, and it's like, well, why this, where it doesn't make sense. You guys, immigration, do you understand how many thousands of cases like they see like on a monthly basis? Like, there's nothing they've not seen. Like, if you have a legitimate reason why you can answer certain things or discrepancies in your application, then answer those instead of lying about it. It's just like when clients are like, oh, I worked under the table. Should I not talk about it? I'm like, no, in this office, if you tell us, we're putting that in there. Well, one, because we cannot commit perjury, but two, it's important that you're just candid. I mean, if you worked under the table, then say you worked under the table. Like, what USCIS is, if you're married to a U.S. citizen. So while you're not supposed to do it, people do it, and USCIS is going to forgive you as long as you've never claimed that you're a U.S. citizen, or use any U.S. citizens' information, to present yourself as a U.S. citizen. Etivo says, oh, wow, we thank God, right? I know, right? Good morning, K7758. Let's see, who else? Good morning. Okay, I'm seeing duplicate questions of the same. What if you work in another state and live in another state with your husband? Again, I hope you just heard the example I gave. As long as you're able to give a legitimate reason why that's the case, you should be fine. My immigration medical was requested, and I was out of town in the state at the time. I did where I was at the time. Is that a problem? I don't know if that's a problem. You'll find out, whether they approve you or not. But if they request your medical without asking you to come in for an interview, it's always a good sign that you will get approved. And I remember telling this client that I said, don't get your hopes up because we still haven't seen this happening, but I just have a feeling this is what's going to happen. And, that's what ended up happening. Sandy says, good morning. My case says transfer to another office. Is that a bad thing? No, sometimes depends on what stage your case is in. So the Vermont unit makes all valid decisions, but it's possible that from there, either they transferred it to Lee Summit for faster processing for your adjustment of status, or maybe you changed your address and they needed to send it from one jurisdiction to another. So there are different reasons why they could transfer it, but it doesn't really mean that it's a bad thing. Can I file if my spouse is in Section 8? Well, obviously there's some public charge concerns, like how are you guys supporting each other? Who's filing for your joint sponsorship? How will you guys survive? Like, if you get approved, or let's say you've not found a job. So those are all things that go into consideration. Okay, Kylie Logan says, hello, good morning. I put in my paper last December, but I've not been called for thumbprint. You mean biometrics? What could be the problem? Without knowing what paper you put in, it's hard for me to say. Kervedral says, if you're not living in the same house yet, is that a problem? If they ask that in an interview, tell the truth. Tell the reason why you're not living in the same house. But if you're not living in the same house, you better have a damn good reason why you're not living in the same house, number one. That's number one. Number two, you better have really good evidence to show that your marriage is a legitimate marriage. And that look at all the things we have together to prove to you that we are truly a legit marriage. It's just that logistics right now, we're trying to work out living together, but these are the logistics that's stopping us from doing it. Okay. Physical therapy noun Birdwood says, do you work with car accidents or slip and falls? No, we don't. We only do immigration. Queen Ishnai says, do you know of any immigration policies for Caribbean nationals? I'm not really sure I understand the question. Like, what policy? Like, what do you mean? Are you talking about like those TPS or something like that? Is that what you're asking? Laid down 2020 says, I came through the border and was inspected, applied for asylum. My partner is a U.S. citizen. Can I get married and adjust my status to still apply for asylum? Without having a consult, I can't tell you. We got to see your immigration history. We got to see whether or not you are actually doing defensive asylum versus affirmative. All those things make a difference, whether you can adjust through USCIS. Okay, let me answer some of these questions in the question box. Jen says, I live in Connecticut with my husband, but I work in another state. Will that be because of financial problems? Well, just explain that. Just explain that to them. You gotta just provide proof of the legitimacy of your marriage. Think about it, guys. People file for consular processing all the time. Consular processing is when one party is here in the United States and then the other party is outside the US. So they do know that sometimes in marriages, you have a long distance marriage due to logistics or whatever the case may be. The key is, again, showing that your marriage is legitimate. Many people have long distance relationships, but you just want to show it's legitimate. How do you do that? You show trips that you take together. You show visits. You can't say we're in a long distance marriage, but we see each other once every 5 months. That already is a problem. If you're going to see each other every month, this month, you go that month, that person comes. you're talking on FaceTime all the time, like you're sending money to each other, you're on the US citizens' health insurance, and just different things like that. You're buying cars from one person, like all those things show the legitimacy of your marriage. So those are the things that you need to make sure that you're showing. I just got married to my US citizen husband. Do I submit paperwork for myself and my son at the same time? If your husband is a US citizen, your husband will be petitioning for both you separately from your son, but it can all be submitted on the same day if that's what you need. But they're two separate applications because he's a US citizen. Coco says, my vow was approved. The fingerprints were taken to update 4 days ago. Congratulations, your vow was approved. Next thing, if you applied for adjustment of status, is that your case then moves over to the field office, and the field office can decide if they want to waive your interview or schedule you for an interview. Okay. All right. Let's see. I can take a few more questions. How long do work authorizations take for an I-485? Most work authorizations can take anywhere from 4 months to 9 months. That's the general window. Some people could be earlier, some people could be later, but most people will fall in that like 5 to 6 month category. What does it mean of updated fingerprints were taken? Okay, I see somebody else asked that on YouTube as well. It just means that either you just recently went to do your biometrics and they recorded it, or you had an old biometrics that they were able to use and bypass, and then they updated it on the system. Can a spouse file for her partner and her son out of the country at the same time? It depends on the spouse filing what their U.S. citizenship status is. Are they citizens or green card holders? If they're green card holders, they're just going to be filling out one I-130. If they're U.S. citizens, they're going to be filling out an I-130 for the child and for the spouse. However, in order for the child to be eligible, you have to have been married to your immigrant spouse before that child turned 18. Dijavino says, after marrying a U.S. citizen, how quickly can you submit your paperwork? As quickly as you want. There's no rule. What does it mean by correspondence was received and USCIS is receiving it, reviewing it on the I-360? It means exactly that. Sometimes it could be something simple, like for instance, if let's say a client hired us to take over their case, maybe they did their case themselves, or like let's say maybe they hired another attorney and they now want to hire us, like just even entering appearance, like meaning we submit a new G28, it will give that notification on there. If there's an amendment, it will give that same thing as well. So it could be anything that requires them to touch your case and update it. 90s Chica says, how long does it take to get a green card through marriage now? Too long. Anywhere from like 12 to like 15 months, which is ridiculous. And I even feel like 15 months is, like, I think USCIS has in some field offices where they put like 20 months, which is maddening for a marriage-based case, which is really why I think they're trying to do these approvals without interviews, if there's enough to make that approval. So again, guys, you should be hiring an attorney who does this stuff on a daily basis that can make sure your stuff is airtight to give you all the odds of getting your case approved quickly and without an interview. And I'm going to put a caveat here. I don't want anybody calling me saying, well, why wasn't my case approved without an interview? Number one, because I don't control the officers and the people who make the decision, because every case is going to have their own officer, their own field office. This is at the discretion of the officer. But always to increase your chance of quick slam dunk cases, send as much as you can. Okay? Okay, Coco said Val was approved in April and got update fingerprints were taken. Okay, so yeah, it's moving to probably have you scheduled soon for your interview or asking you for your medical if you didn't send them. I filed for Val in February, finally got my receipt in July. Then I submitted a hardship for my work authorization. I have fingerprints at the end of the week. How long before my work authorization will come? I don't know when your work authorization is going to come. Generally, hardship, it's hard to get a hardship approved. If you're in the healthcare industry, you can get that accelerated quicker. So I would say just go based on the normal timelines that I gave earlier for work permits, or maybe someone will just have pity and just be really quick with it. How long does it take to approve a valid case? Valid cases take anywhere from 2 years, 24 months to 2.5 years. So during that time, if you qualify to apply for adjustment of status and a work permit, definitely do it. Just so you can at least have your 2-year work permit and your 2-year travel permit while you're waiting for them to make a decision on your case. All right, guys, I gotta jump off. I'm not gonna be on the rest of the week. I'm out of the country, but I will see you guys back next week, Monday or Tuesday. All right, guys, have a great rest of your week and talk to y'all later. Bye.